Everybody, it's Robert Dunt from ArtTop10.com, and I'm here today at the wonderful exhibition Defining Structure at the Cello Factory, and I'm very pleased to be here with the artist Pratt. Hello. So, go on, tell me a little bit about this wonderful piece here. What's it called?
It's called Fasted.
Okay, cool.
Which is a wordplay on fast and tardy, or slow.
Okay.
It took a very long time to make it. It's from 2017, and it's one of a series of works that I made in 2017.
Okay. So tell me about how it's made. How does it take such a long time to produce?
The ground is very hasty, the grey paint, and the red paint is very painstakingly picks out the ridges left by the trail of the brush bristles, and that's very slow and painstaking. And then the yellow lines delineate paths between the black blobs that where there have been shiny islands of paint.
Okay.
And the green is a very fast way to draw it all together. So there's a lot to do about the change of pace, and the title describes the process.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you can see all these nice shapes you've put in there.
Yeah, it's fun doing that.
Yeah, exactly, that fun sort of bit. And then, so are you trying to sort of make a reference between the speed of this and the speed of that? Is there some kind of...
The paintings themselves are a contemplation on the kind of thought processes that go into making artworks.
Okay.
Well, my thought process was, my artworks.
Sure.
So, things that you notice, and ordering ways to keep yourself busy in the studio to buy yourself thinking time, to make space for yourself to think, and to impose some kind of rationale on something that starts off.
So that's interesting. So the way you're saying it, that it starts with like a chaos, and then you're trying to control or put some order.
Well, it starts with gesture. It's not really chaos. I mean, it's quite, if each of us were brushing the ground on, you'd be able to...
Yeah, we'd all have our own kind of
calligraphy.
Yeah, exactly.
Our own signature. So it's not really chaos. It's just unfettered, uncontrolled, or swift, and... also, the ability, getting started, just kick-starting each work, so that you're faced with this stark white surface, and the fear, the stage fright,
absolutely.
The possibility of knowing what to paint.
Yeah, no, totally, absolutely. It is.
What am I going to do here?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's really interesting because you do. I mean, it's so nice just to make those big gestural shapes, isn't it? And then you do wonder, what am I going to do now?
I'm very sceptical about the idea of self-expression. Not only sceptical about it as a sort of autobiographical comment, but also I don't find it particularly interesting. I'm not really interested in the kind of work that's all about the artist and the moment. So, or the artist's self-declaration,
So is it sort of it's not really anti that kind of abstract expression?
No,
it's sort of big Jackson Pollock.
It piggybacks on it.
Yeah.
It critiques it.
Yeah. Interesting, actually. And so tell me, so the red bits kind of relate to that initial brushstroke. How do the yellow ones relate to it again?
The yellow ones track a path between these islands that have been...
Oh, I see. And the islands, little bits of paint that were...
Yes.
So things you picked out from the start.
Yeah, baldly, what I do is I notice recurrences, things that keep cropping up, and determine a kind of way of treating all those instances, and then apply the same rule as objectively as I can to all of it.
So it's almost like the painting is almost you're reading that initial gestural things, would you say?
Yeah, well, it's a kind of chain reaction. It starts off as it started off that way. The first gesture lays the potential courses, but there's no inevitability to it. I mean, they're essentially complex systems. They come from the systems paintings or the systems school of the 1960s, but because of the organic surface and because of the interaction between different systems, they get ever more complex, and so there's no inevitability or no certain outcome, and no one interpretive path. They could come out in different ways.
So how do the green ones then relate to the thing?
I think, sometimes it's quite glib. I think they literally, it's hard to remember retrospectively, but looking at it, they quite boldly pick out islands of red paint.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, they are.
So, on the one hand, it's quite legalistic and specific, and on the other hand, actually it's quite playful, and these are rules that I've made up for myself, so I can break them. And they're only there to make a painting. They're not there to impose behaviour on the...
on the universe. No, I think it's really interesting. Personally, one thing I find quite is the idea that you've got this, not chaos, but a gestural sort of thing you put down. And then in a way, when you look at it now, it's almost like you're reading that, and it's almost like you're reading and making sense of this background paint surface. And the point you put on top of it is almost like the way you see that background.
Yeah, but also, even my own decision making. This is a kind of a track of that. My own thinking and decision making and planning, because obviously I sit and think about what colour I might use or what I might do. There's again no inevitability, so I can give quite a doctrine. Dogmatic doctrine about how I approach things, but you can look at them and see that there's quite a lot of inroads for intuition and...
Well, I keep thinking, you could have gone on more and more with it. Because it is quite intuitive. Because maybe these bits are quite painstaking, but these bits are kind of... It's kind of like a sort of crazy wild mountain, and it escaped over the rest of it. And,
what I guess I hope for is that some of the thinking and the processes are transferable. So that the idea of making a decision and being led down subsequent pathways is something that occurs in all aspects of life.
So as you're doing it, are you thinking about whether it will be pretty or...
No, I don't really care about that, but I suppose, that's chasing rainbows, because one person's pretty is another person's, slapped arse.
Nice.
I was going to say slap the baboon's arse.
I was going to imagine that baboons looking into the film.
You can cut that in.
Yeah, I'll just cut it in.
That in itself doesn't appeal to me. I think, but then, it's nonetheless present. It's broken down into tiny moments of what colour shall I use next, what shall I, what do I think I need to do next? Is it finished? So in that respect, the kind of taste aspect creeps in, but it's but
you're trying to eradicate that, if you can.
I'm trying to ignore it, I think, or mediate it, divert it through more objective channels.
And what would you like your sort of your ideal viewer? What would they think when they saw it?
Oh, what I really like is when people look at them and say, "Oh, I know what this is about. It's about transport planning, or it's about choosing a medical pathway for treatment."
Right, and you think that's just?
Well, it shows that there's some kind of there's some kind of logic that is transferable.
Interesting.
Which is.
So you mean something's out of what you've done, you've created some kind of structure that communicates something to people in a way you didn't expect?
Yeah, it's an abstract, abstract thinking patterns, abstract thought patterns that I hope other people will pick up on.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, because this bit reminds me of like a road or a flyover. Or...
Yeah, well, they get compared to landscapes quite a lot, to maps and landscapes.
Interesting. That's really cool. Should we look at one more just to get a comparison? Right, cool. So this is one of the other four
yeah.
got here. So what's this one called?
Pengreen.
Pengreen. Very nice. I love the title, man. And any reason for the title?
Yes. It's meant to sound like a place because, in a sense, I think of the works as a site of activity, of thinking and making, and it's hyphenated. At the time, one of my kids was really obsessed with penguins and the colour green.
Okay, oh cool, I like
green
it.
Penguins. So
I like
kind
it. Like a crazy cut up.
Yeah.
That's really cool, and I love these big hunks of green in here.
Oh, that happened. That's I put the Venetian Reds checkerboard on, and the colour just wasn't working. Okay. So, but it was almost working, so I didn't want to obliterate it altogether.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
the green was put on to. There is a kind of intuitive element.
Sure. Yeah. And so it's the same. So the same basic starts the last one. You did all this the background's quite quick, and then you've worked.
And this one has raw pigment sprinkled on the paint when it was wet. And then
cool. Nice.
In places it's brushed in, and in other places it's left. So the kind of measles effect.
Yeah, that's
from drawing around little hills of powder pigment.
Yeah. I think they're interesting actually because they exist, as you say, between a kind of a system or a process, but also they must be quite intuitive as well because do you feel a conflict with that the whole time?
The thing, when I, before I sort of struck on the habit of setting up rules that would, fulfill a huge chunk of the painting and then another rule to further the work. I just never knew. I just couldn't make decisions. I could look at something and I could see 2 or 3 steps ahead, like like being a really bad chess player, which I am, a really bad chess player. You can see kind of 2 or 3 steps ahead, but you can't see. I couldn't commit because it all seemed so arbitrary.
Well, that's the problem we have these days, isn't it? That you look back on all the stuff in the past where they made arbitrary decisions, but they won't worry about it. But now we find making arbitrary decisions impossible.
Well, some people can do it, and some people do it very well. Yeah. But I'm not one of them.
No, but I think if you're doing the painting and you're thinking about it, arbitrary decisions become. Well, too arbitrary, don't they? Because you don't want to make a decision based on just not so much prettiness, but it's harder to go back to that kind of
Well, I suppose if you're doing it well, it's not arbitrary. It's only arbitrary because there's no discernible rationale.
That's interesting, actually, isn't it? These days we want a rationale behind it.
Well, I suppose you have to interest yourself as well as your audience, and I suppose if you're discovering something yourself, then at least the audience can, pick up.
Pick up on
some of that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I love talking. It's really interesting. Very nice and really interesting, actually. So thank you very much. So guys, there's more interviews coming from Defining Structure. So do like and subscribe, and wait for the links to the other interviews. Okay, cheerio. Bye. Bye.
Bumbuckler.